Hello, everyone. Welcome to Cybersecurity Automation Interview Series. Today we have a really interesting episode. We'll be discussing on when it makes sense to automate and when does AI SOC actually works. With me, I have two good friends of mine, Andrei Cotaie and Cristian Miron. They're both leading the security engineering or SecOps initiatives at UiPath. Andrei is a principal engineer and Christy is a senior security engineer there. Hey guys, welcome to today's episode.
Hey Philip, thank you for inviting us.
Hey, thank you.
Great. So let's get things started. There's been a lot of discussion on the AI SOC space recently, and there are many organizations that they're experimenting, many that they're reluctant, others that they are already implementing AI SOC. But today's discussion, I want to concentrate on when does it make sense to automate and when does it make sense to implement AI SOC. You guys had also a really cool presentation at the last Dev Camp, which I really liked, and you did some implementation by yourself, like in-house built AI SOC capability. So my first question is, how do you see this space? Where do you think that AI SOC it makes sense, and where do you think that automation it makes sense? Just like high level overview on what are your thoughts on the space.
If I can start, I guess we're going to speak a lot about agents today. So let's actually discuss what an agent is from my personal perspective, right? So if I would have to compare an agent with an LLM, basically an agent is an LLM which has the ability to do reflection on itself, right? Has ability to use tools and has context, right? An agent without tools and context is basically an over-glorified LLM. And even if you speak about LLM, there is a huge difference between me going on ChatGPT and asking a question, or me using an LLM with a system prompt and having like a much more vertical kind of a spectrum, right? So, as a lot of companies are actually entering the AI world because either they need or there is pressure from the industry to do that, right? There is huge steps of maturity between this, from basic ChatGPT usage to a vertical LLM to an agent. Now, so because we're actually asking about the AI landscape, there are a lot of companies appearing, right? There were some players there which are doing machine learning for security before Gen AI appeared in our life, right? And there are lots of players which appeared in the last couple of years which are actually leveraging Gen AI, right? And I feel like it's unfair for the guys who were struggling before that, right? Like they did a lot of work, right? And Gen AI came here and changed the entire playground. But I still don't think it reached the maturity hype it should be for a mature SOC operation team to actually to fully use and trust and have an independent AI stream using an AI SOC platform. That doesn't mean it doesn't have value. It has value. It's really important, right? It's still, from my own perspective, we're not at the moment where I would be absolutely comfortable to having everything in my back fully triaged by AI. And I guess I'm going to touch one of those moments why and what I feel is still needed during our conversation here.
Great insights, Andrei, and thanks just for explaining also what an agent, AI agent is as well. Christian, what is your view on all this space?
I tend to agree mostly with Andrei's points there. I think that there is not specifically one case where you can say automation is good here and AI is necessarily useful here. I think it's a combination of both of them, depending on each use case. And I think that the most powerful scenarios are the ones where you implement automations together with AI in the sense of something like an agent that Andrei has described. If you have clear processes or things that need to take step one, two, three, four, five, then definitely you're going to go for a basic automation kind of scenario. And then if you need something like unstructured data data that would need some sort of parsing, and it would take too many variations or too many changes, then yeah, you would easily apply or integrate some sort of AI into it and make everything go smoother and save you lots of time.
Nice, nice. Those are some great insights. How I want to steer a discussion. So recently I built one chart where I split the whole IR cycle into three parts, which is the left side, which is data ingestion, log processing, and detection engineering. Then we have the middle side, which is the enrichment, triage, and investigation. On the right side, we have the response, the remediation, and the whole feedback loop. So I wanted to discuss with you to go to each of these categories and to see where it makes sense to use automation, where it makes sense to use AI. So we can start from the left side, where we have the data ingestion and log processing and detection engineering. What is your view? How we can use automation here? Does it make sense, or to use AI to write our own detection? Can we just take the logs and throw them to an LLM? In my personal opinion, I think that's a really bad idea. We have ML for that. But yes, I want to hear also your view and opinion on this, or maybe if you have even some examples of implementation.
Yeah, well, so I really like this split, right? And I'm going to say, I'm not going to play by rules. I'm going to say that the middle part, the enrichment and triage part, at least the enrichment, I think it's where LLM and AI SOC shine right now. Like they're doing fantastic job there. Now, going back to the beginning, to the left side. So in the industry, you have all kind of tooling used for detection, right? Like you have things like small language models, you have ML models, which are fast. Both of them are much faster than LLMs, right? So even when you're just speaking about huge amounts of data, you need to be fast, right? And cost efficient. So LLM might not do the trick there, right? And of course, you have LLMs. Now, projects, small models, machine learning, LLMs. Like that's basically the line of cost there. So me and Christy at least, we're working on AI and we're doing really fun projects, but all projects start from experimenting. There is not a golden baseline like from where implementation starts, right? So GenAI is still a fresh technology in our world. So people are still finding use cases to use. So basically everything we're building, it's starting from an experiment. And we have experimented on the things you presented there, especially on that side. And I think one of the most interesting ones, it is the detection engineering one. But we need to go back to one of the principles of agents, context. You cannot build detection for UiPath. You don't have context for UiPath. That's, for example,
Yes.
because I work there, right? I mean, I don't think there are so many clients out there which are using like the standard structure of log ingesting, data naming, data sources, and so on. So an agent LLM trained on open data, which has access to the standard resources, is going to be able to highly target the detection rule on the data of the client, right? It's going to have a generic statement which is going to fail. And the other truth here, Christy did a really nice experiment in UiPath with detection engineering, and I don't know if she wants to actually to discuss a little bit more about that.
Yeah, thank you for that intro, Andrei. Like you said, we basically built context grounding for our data using an automation combined with an LLM that basically read through our logs and understood all of our naming conventions. I think, I hope I'm not mistaken, but I think that there are not too many companies that have all of their logs standardized according to a framework or to a naming convention, or even if they do it only for like a few months, a year. And then as new engineers are onboarded, the standard gets changed to the preference for that specific engineer, or to how much effort they want to deploy in making those functions. And basically, what we did is instead of trying to adapt our logs to the standard, we made our AI agent adapt to our environment, and it's able to understand how our logs look like, irrespective of the table or the index where they're stored. And because the first question that popped into people's minds when we showed this was, why don't we adapt to the standard instead of making the AI adapt to us? We then moved one step further and we said, okay, then we're going to make another agent that will read through the current state of our logs, and it's going to create macro functions that will adapt all of our tables to the standard so that it looks better for everybody now. And it's indeed a better point if you think about it, because now the variations inside the fields is less. So even the agent now has a higher accuracy rate because the variation in those field naming conventions is less. And yeah, building on top of that, Andrei says that I did, but it's actually him that continued to work on this. He started using this data for detection engineering based on emerging threats or on new threats being found in the news or in basically any source of information, threat into information. And through the agents that he built, now we have an automated flow that reads through the news cycle, finds what's new now, what's the latest threat, and with the context grounding that we provided, the agent knows our environment, knows our data, and starts querying all of the resources or the tables or indexes where it knows that there might be relevant information for that specific tactic or technique, and it basically retrieves the information accordingly and says, yeah, we might be impacted because I found this, or no, this is not relevant to us because we do not use that technology, or I do not see any evidence of exploitation, depending on the situation here.
So
Right.
if I may comment
Yes.
on this, there is a really fine line between detection engineering and kind of threat hunting automated enrichment scenarios, right? And again, the agent that Chris discussed, or the framework actually, because it's not just an agent, works really well on hunting down for IOCs and behavioral stuff. But it's not still their detection engineering, right? For detection engineering, you need a first kind of mindset when you make a rule, and that rule doesn't apply just for this particular use case. That rule has to be generic enough to cover future iterations of this variant, right? And maybe it's our prompt not good enough yet, but we're not there. And I'm really curious if the next versions of LLM are actually going to be able to do much better detection engineering scenarios than the ones we currently handle.
Yeah, but sorry, even so, at this point, like when you have hundreds of tables and indexes, you might miss some of them when you're trying to look, where do I have IP traffic in all of these 800, 900 tables that I have in my environment. Having such an agent that's going to tell you, okay, I found IP-like information in these 10 tables, it might help you uncover some of those blind spots that you might not have considered when building a new detection, a new analytic rule, whatever you want to call it.
Oh, that's really interesting, and I think yes, you're definitely a step ahead of most organizational types, on what they're building and what's their approach. And I really like it. Something similar that I've been working on. I took a bit different approach, so I used the MCP of the SIEM, and that way when I'm using the MCP, it goes and queries first it goes and checks all the log sources, then it's checking all the schemas for each log source, and it's trying to identify what type of data you have. As you were both saying, here key is how you standardize the data, because if you don't have your schemas built well and they don't follow some UDM, it'll be really challenging for the agent in the end to identify which fields to use and which information is to use for building detections, or even just making a query. But I think that's probably it depends also a lot on the SIEM that you're using. What I've seen in the next gen SIEMs, it's way easier to access the schema. It's way easier to query because you're dependent on data lake in the back end. So everything it happens a bit more faster and it's a bit more optimized compared to the old school SIEMs where we have like Splunk, Sentinel, Google SecOps, Curator, and many others in that space where they're a bit more optimized on real-time detections rather than just data queries. But yeah, and I don't know if you give it if you tried already some of the MCPs or if you have available, but that's something that I explored and I find it like working quite well in this scenario when building detection. So I just feed the hypothesis and it goes and checks. Yes, the flow, it was check all the log sources, check the schemas, check all the detections that they already have in the platform, see if it's something exists or not, and then yes, build the detection that it's new, or it will come with a suggestion, oh, you already have these detections and you can update them to improve them, stuff like that.
Yeah, no, it's a good approach. I mean, if I would make one comment, like why I would prefer things like RAGs, retrieval augmented generation, rather than agents, it's cost. For every
Yeah.
schema you actually inquire, you have one agent call, which is one whatever cost, right? So while if you actually query the entire context grounding or retrieval augmented generation database from one, you have like one cost, so you can compare like 20 execution versus one. Now, for us as engineer, it doesn't really matter because we're geeky and I like to play. But I guess when building a product, this kind of things sum up.
Oh yes, yes, definitely. And I think that's the other thing that I'm seeing in the space. Many of the vendors they're building, they're not making the solutions cost effective at this point. It's more just, oh, we have this ton of features, you can do this stuff really cool, and then you wake up then when you ramp up and you scale that the solution, or it will cost the customer too much, or it will cost the vendor too much, and they won't be able to support the cost, or it will be like the solution they sell it cheaper than actually what it costs to run it in the back.
Yep. Sounds legit. I can imagine that.
Yeah. Okay. Then let's move to the middle side. So I'll share my graph here as well, so it's easier for the audience to follow. As you were saying, Andrei, earlier, that the enrichment, triage, investigation, I think that's where AI SOC shines, because in my view there are like two type of approaches that we have. We have deterministic automation, which is the old school source stuff that you need to build, and then we have things where we have undeterministic things, and that's where I think AI agents shine, because they, rather than just following specific playbook, they can go and try different actions or investigations based on the context that they're getting. So that's at least my view, and why I think yes, the AI agents, they shine in this area. When I remember back in the days, so just for the audience, the three of us, we worked at Adobe back in the day. So we had really cool, interesting project that we worked together, and really cool experiences. So that's how we grew and learned from each other in our career. But yeah, I remember back in the day when we were building, like, especially specifically the enrichment playbooks, and it was, I don't know, 10 or 20 different playbooks, each like going to different threat intelligence or log sources that we had. Not specific log sources, but it was more like internal and external enrichment. So it was like internal database, like for CMDB, and then you have the external threat intelligence stuff. And yeah, it was painful just to understand for each detections that you have when actually you need to do which enrichment and maintaining all of those. It was, yeah, it was not pleasant. So now, yes, with the agent, what I've tried so far, it's most of the AI SOC solutions, and they work quite well with doing this. I know you guys, you tried something as building in-house as well. So if you can share some details, and also your view on this, like why you think AI agents shine here, and how we can best apply them.
Yeah, I mean, I worked a lot on machine learning projects, especially during my time at Adobe, and it was super fun, right? And we were speaking about machine learning. We were not speaking about LLMs or NLP back then. We had like a black box, and we have some input parameters, and we had some output, which is usually like a binary or classification, right? So we were speaking about really three kind of scenarios. Like I had those features, I would need to convert those features to something and put that changed. That doesn't exist anymore, right? With LLM. You basically have a bunch of text, you put it there, and then you hope the output is what you need. I mean, you're going to find on the system prompt until you get what you need, right? So that's a game changer. Imagine now for me, I make an agent level 1 something targeting investigation agent, right? And I just said, hey, this is the original alert. This is some logs I got from a particular source with a particular query. Do a correlation between them. That's black magic, right? It's something that it would take one of my analysts, I know, 5, 10, 15 minutes to actually do all those steps and to get like a correlation. And that's where LLMs shine. The ability to correlate data points, NLP kind of scenarios, it's really good, right? And that's how enrichment also works really, really well, right? So an agent with a bit of automation and with the appropriate tools like that can produce a really, really good output. And it's definitely a step forward from machine learning. I think machine learning scenarios are going, even maybe small language models, are going to remain in the case of strong classifier and of strong and fast classifier. You need a good response. It's black or white. But for everything, we as SOC people, we like words, right? So if I have an audit looking over my alert, I need to demonstrate that this was investigated and why it makes sense, right? And this is where LLM really, really shine. So that's my opinion. That's why I endorse them, at least at this kind of level.
Great. Christy, what's your view on this one?
I'm thinking we can go a bit further, like we're trying right now to build our own RB type of alerting mechanism, and we're leveraging basically our LLM to take all of our alerts and basically map out between and basically enrich our alerts with a simple statement like this was the attacker, this was the victim, this was the infrastructure used. And doing this, now we have like a mapped out model of the entities affected in each of our alerts, and it's easy from this point forward to build something like a risk-based alerting mechanism. And if we were to do this manually, I think this would have been a failure at like the first or second day of the project development cycle. Thinking about it, all of the alerts that we have and saying, okay, this is source IP in this alert type and in this alert type and in this alert type, and going through all of these one at a time, going through 500 alerts or something like this, somebody would have quit before we finish this project for sure. And again, the thing that I always go back to, even if you manage to do a project like this where you manage to manually map out something, maintenance would have gone out the window like the day of the launch. The first change, it would have been already missed, and this model would have been irrelevant. Using something like an LLM for enrichment ensures that basically this is always up to date, and it stays relevant to your scenario. And again, it costs significantly less than having somebody go through all of the alerts for a month or two, or however long it would actually take for somebody to do this mapping.
Definitely, and yeah, and that's also what I'm usually seeing in my experience as well. I just wanted to share one interesting story I had where I had an alert to investigate, and I needed to build. There were two key areas. It was I needed to build a timeline analysis and blast radius. So timeline analysis, I remember from the back of the day when we were doing forensics and working on it, it was the most painful thing. Like we would stay a week and go over the timeline and use all the like open source tools to do that. It was like, yeah, when I was just remembering staying a week to build that. I went now to my sim. I used first it did some of the AI SOC solution. It already did some of the correlation, built really nice timeline using it just created the code to build the timeline, so it gave me a really nice overview. So it was just, I don't know, 5 minutes of work for it, and then I just needed to expand on it, and you just again use the chat the prompts to the SIEM or use the MCP in the backend, and it built a full timeline for 90 days. I was like, oh, this is cool. Now I have everything for one user. like let's find all other users or all other assets that they were affected. Again, maybe I waited 15, 13 minutes to gather all the data and to build me nice dashboards even. But it was there. I was like, in 1 hour, I finished an investigation. Will take like whole week, and like we would stay multiple people to run that. And those are the stuff I was like, yeah, this really works in this kind of scenarios, and you can definitely see the value.
And
Yeah.
sorry, I would also include the errors in that process. Like when you said that there were several people working on building the timeline, I'm sure there was at least one person who did a typo at one point,
Oh
and
yeah.
because of that, the whole timeline was yeah. I don't know who you're talking about, and like then you had to go like, where did this break, and where did we start making an error because somebody forgot to change to the current time zone and not standardized to GMT or something. I don't know, anything of that sort. So yeah, I understand the gains that you're mentioning and the improvement this brings to the table.
Yes. Something on the other side of the things, something that I'm hearing from many of the practitioners in the industry, that they're saying, "Oh well, we have now the AI investigations. They're going through, let's say, thousands of alerts. We were able to go to 200, but then is like still many of those they'll come as inconclusive, or they would come
Suspicious.
to be suspicious or escalated. But the other issue is like, did you find a way how you can then run good reports and verify if the AI did proper analysis for those that like it auto closed them rather than escalating them? Something that I tried, it was like to run shadow mode like for 3 months and see, to make sure like every alert that is processing, to make sure like why it's closing it one way or another, and then run like weekly reports and see like everything that it closed, what type of alerts they were that it closed. And just still we have that instinct, and we can catch an outlier when we have a weird detection, it fired once and the AI closed it as normal activity. I would want to check that. I was like, just out of curiosity, I would want to see why that alert fired and how it closed it. But yes, that's my approach. Still, I have like a lot of manual stuff that I'm doing when I'm reviewing if the AI did a great job. But yeah, my question is if you found a different way, maybe automated way to gain that trust of the AI, make sure that it does every time what it's supposed to do.
So we have multiple scenarios handling alerts. We're a big company, and we have even an AI SOC platform, MSSP, and of course our internal work. And I don't want to say everybody has different outcomes, but we definitely have different ways of doing stuff. So I can speak about the work that me and Christy were doing there. And we're envisioning the alert handling as a standard security operation team, right? So we take an alert to identify what's particular about it from an IOC entity perspective. We have a fleet of Agent 1 SOC analysts which are going to go crazy and run all kinds of queries for the relevant IOCs that are present there and types. We have a level 2 analyst, which is going to do summarization based on different categories. And then we're going to have a level 3 analyst, which is going to take a summarization of the level 2 summarization, the level 1 summarization, and so on, right? But we have different stages. And what I find really interesting in the entire pipeline is actually to log responses from each of the agent levels, right? Because if an alert at the end is closed as whatever classification is get, I do understand like how that data has what its flow in the decision, right? And of course, all the agents I have which have decision power, I have a special output for them where I ask them like to tell me why you took that decision based on logs and documents and so on, right? So it gets even more data. But there is always a risk of hallucination, right? In LLMs, it's a thing. They really like to please us. They really want to give us answers. Like that's why they live in this world. So you can combat that with really strict system prompts, right? That means you take out of the autonomy of an agent, right? An agent is going to do exactly what you want. and you're going to have much more straightforward answer. But when it's limited to whatever you want exactly, then the creativity and the power of the agents it's reduced, right? So it's a balance there. But yes, like in incident response, how I do my day-to-day job, I like to keep a really good track of evidence. And I think that makes the life of the analyst also much more easier when they are reviewing an alert.
I see. And something else that I've first of all, yes, that's really good insight, and thanks for sharing, Andrei. Something else that I've seen that most of the LLMs and the output that it comes, it's really optimistic. So the LLM wants to come with stuff that they're not as bad as it looks. And that's my other challenge, that I was like, no, for when it's about cybersecurity, I want to tell me, oh, this is the worst case scenario, but this might not be as bad because of this and this. And they're saying in most of the outputs, it's the other way around. They're like, oh, this is not so bad, but in case something bad happens, here are the two things that might go wrong. I don't know if you, as you were saying, Andreas, in this way, I think one way is to be really strict and to limit it. Still, it's you add some deterministic stuff to a non-deterministic agent. But I don't know if you found a way, yes, to make it more pessimistic than optimistic.
I don't know, man. You have to give your prompts because all my agents are really pessimist, like destroy the device, put the user in prison. Like, no, I'm kidding, but I mean, I really want to. I mean, suspicious, but you can close. No, suspicious and escalate. It's like, okay, yeah. So, no, I guess it depends on the prompt and how you can do the prompt. And the honest truth is, between the two of us, we have different personalities, and I'm as all developers, when we create a system prompt, somehow some pieces of our personality goes there in the prompt. So yes,
I see. So you're saying it's my fault. I'm like optimistic person. My LLMs, they sound like me now. They're all optimistic, and I'm like, oh, it's too optimistic. I'm even actually, it's like looking myself in the AI mirror. I was like, oh, am I that optimistic?
I don't know. I see as an optimistic guy. You're always happy, so
Thank you. Okay then. Let's move to the right side now. We have the last piece that I wanted to cover. Let's go back to the chart here. So yes, response, remediation, feedback loop. In my view, I mean, I wrote a lot of blogs. I'm thinking that yes, AI it's not there. We don't have the trust. I mean, if we tried even with
yeah.
SOAR with deterministic stuff, we didn't succeed even with that because we hit the like change management wall. It was never like, yes, you click a button, you remediate everything. Worked in only few scenarios, and it was an interesting discussion on LinkedIn on this as well. Is like uh, usually these remediation playbooks, they need to run when you arrive to remediation stage. It some means that you had the true positive, you had an incident, you need to remediate some stuff, and that usually it's an incident full blown. A lot of people, they're panicking, and you rarely go, okay, now let's find our best automation for this and let's click the button. No, you're like, okay, let's make a plan who is doing what, and we'll do like all these steps manual just
Yeah.
to make sure that everything runs. So even with deterministic automation, I think we are still not there. With AI, I think we are far away from being like doing autonomous remediation. But yeah, go on. Yeah, tell me your view, your experience with this part.
Go on,
Yeah.
Steve.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I can't talk about remediation itself. I'm going to go back to the initial example we had with our log source documentation and standardizing it to a certain standard. To a standard, yeah. And as I was building that flow, I was thinking, okay, so I need to give this agent access to our database with right permissions so that it can build these functions. And I almost had like a small anxiety attack. Like, yeah, I'm not going to do that. I mean, I trust my prompt, but I don't trust it that much. So even in this scenario where the changes could have been rather limited, I was like, I'm not going to mess with our DB or production DB. So I created a cloned database which has access to our production database. And the way I'm querying it now is from that cloned database that's accessing the production logs. And like, I feel much more comfortable with you running in this very limited space where you can do anything without necessarily breaking anything major, rather than giving it full access to write in that space. Sure, this could be like a separate discussion. Like maybe if we had better permission management in that specific tool, then we wouldn't need to be so scared, because you could limit the permissions to only edit macros and not just write on the whole DB. But that's the separate discussion. But yeah, basically that's my point. Like I don't feel like we can go ahead and say like, yeah, we're going to do automated remediation. But I think as we move forward and technology gets better, and like Andrei said, people experiment more with new technologies and new prompts and new integrations. Um, I think the financial incentive for certain companies will act as a push to
Yes.
start implementing such scenarios. Like, yeah, we can't afford to have a full SOC with an IR team and something, and we can't afford to buy the services from somebody. There's a new solution on the market that's offering it at half the cost of a traditional enterprise schema. Okay, we're going to go with that, and we're going to tackle it as is. I think that's how I see things moving down the road.
I
If
definitely
I
see that happening. I'm with you there. Is that still there'll be some that there'll be, oh, this solution does end to end. We just implement it because it's cheap. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think so. Going back to the original question, right? Think of the following scenario: we have an alert, not an incident, not a full incident. You have an alert, right? And you need to isolate the host or reset the user password, right? So those are those can be achieved with tools. So if you give the tool to an agent, the agent can take the decision to isolate the host or to reset the password. The problem comes back to what Chrissy said. Do you trust the decision of the agent, right? Because again, it might be a Philip agent which is really optimistic, it might be an Andrei agent which is really pessimistic, right? And uh, I still think there are some things that they need to be human review or to be a human decision, right? So when you have an audit again, like, hey, that user took that decision to do that particular thing there. And again, if I compare agents or agentic workflows with machine learning modules, I would more trust a machine learning module to give me a 1 or 0 kind of classification than an agent right now, right? Because for a machine learning model, I mean, I already did a lot of processing for it to get the input data there. Again, it depends on the scenario. It doesn't mean that agents are always going to fail. Most likely, 99% of the time, they're going to do the right thing. But it's a trust thing. Let's put it like that.
I see. Yeah, I totally agree. And you have, yes, it's a good point. And there are scenarios where it might work, but yes, it's the fear also of, it can go wild. It can do like, it can decide, oh, I'm seeing this IOC which probably was not that bad. I'm seeing 100 different hosts, and um, I'll do that. I think it's just then important is where you add the human in the loop. uh,
Yep.
if we have some human in the loop before the remediation, we just say yes, do this, or do not do this. I think we can do it, and it can be still, it will take out some weight from the analyst, because you will have some remediation actions that they're autonomous in other sense, where others, yes, you'll need to do them manually, because yes, the AI didn't come to the right conclusion. There's also another thing with the on the right side, which is the feedback loop, and it's all that like nice reports that we are writing in the end of the incident. I think that's where Gen AI and LLM, they're quite good. They're amazing at writing
Yep.
reports. I mean, as a SOC analyst, I in all the companies that I have been, the especially if it's an alert, the summary is like one liner. Yeah, this was malicious, was isolated, or the other summary, it will be this was false positive normal activity, and like that's all the context that you have. No, the AI can write you like 10-page
Yep.
report if you want, just on every step that happened and everything that it did. And yeah, in my view, it's quite useful. Like to hear also if you're using it that way, and if you're also going like the step forward, if you're feeding these back to your detection engineering engine, so how you can improve detections in the end.
Yeah, we're actually doing similar stuff like that. We had an implementation last year. It was LLM based. I think it might be agent based right now. When we were looking at an alert that was closed, right, and we were doing a review, a quality review of the alert, and saying like, that's the DEFAM talk we had last year, and saying like, this alert seems properly handled, or this alert doesn't seem properly handled. Like you didn't follow procedure, you didn't follow things like that, right? And it was a two-way feedback, right? I could either say it's okay, and it's okay, while others say like, hey, relook at this alert, right? And it's really important because at the end of the day, I would have a set of alerts which were all handled properly, and then I can take that set of alerts and I can do whatever machine learning or LM training on them, right? Like, but I have a really reliable set of data which has future use cases. Not to say that I increase the security posture of my company. So again, context is really important, and it's important agents to create also context in their action.
Yeah, that's right. Now, those are some great insights, I think, and also we think we can continue discussion for hours from here. But yeah, I don't know how much patience our audience will have, and maybe we can extend this to another episode. But yeah, guys, I really enjoyed the discussion. I hope that we shared also some really cool stories for the audience here. And yeah, I want to thank you for sparing some time here and discuss and share all the insights from the stuff that you're seeing in this space.
Sweet.
Thank you, Philip. It was
you,
fun,
Philip.
like all times.
Thank you. And for the audience, yes, hope that you enjoyed the episode. Subscribe to the Cybersecurity Automation blog and stay tuned for the next one.